Good morning, everybody. It is the 3rd of January 2025, and I am at Nyamiga. I told somebody that I would come here. They wanted me to come to Nyamiga. There's a Christmas market going on over there, but I have a lot of news to put out. So, well, at least it's a nice, interesting place. We have good weather for the moment, and maybe you can enjoy the sights as well as maybe hearing the news if a lot of you like to hear this type of news. Some of it might be a little bit not so nice. A lot of people, they only want to hear good news, but it's maybe the way you look at news that is your problem. There is some news I don't like. I don't like hearing a lot of things happening to children and what's going on, and so I try to maybe now go very light on that if I ever have any information about it. I already talked about that in one of my last videos, so I don't have any bad news like that at this moment. So instead we will talk about other things, and like I say, maybe it's the attitude. You have to have the right attitude and to stomach things that you don't like to hear, but it's kind of I don't know, you might want to I don't want to use the word stupid, but it's stupid if you don't want to hear bad news, because you pretty much have to know what is going on, because you never know what's going to be coming towards your direction. Along with that, I should say that there's also, apparently, at least by some news, there's some big epidemic things going on in China, and I don't know if this is true, because I've only seen one story, and they declared a state of emergency, and a lot of sicknesses, and one of the things is COVID again, of course, and I don't know if they shut anything down. I have no idea, really. I don't know how much truth there is in that, but as you know, a lot of those people, they got vaccinated. I don't know anything about the Chinese vaccination or some of these other vaccinations. I didn't get vaccinated, and most of the people I know did not get vaccinated, so maybe that's all I should say about that. But obviously I'm too early. It's 10:30 in the morning, so a lot of these booths are not open yet. Looks like what this is a lot of street food, apparently. McNuggets and shawarma and potatoes, things like that. I don't know if even anybody's in there doing anything. I don't know, maybe there's a certain time when this opens up, but it's good that nobody's here, because I don't have to get so badly distracted when I'm starting to talk about the news. So let's get into the news now. You keep preventing me from getting to the news that I want to talk about. So, and there's a lot of things, so where do I start here? Okay, one of the topics. You're pumping out the porta potties over there. Luckily, I'll tell you what, one good reason that it's good that I'm here early. Oh no, there is music. I don't know if I'm gonna get shut off from YouTube. Maybe that's so loud that you can't hear the music. You know how YouTube hates music, so let's get back, try to get back on focus here. Oh, look at this Christmas tree. Well, I love it's, I guess, early enough in the morning up here in the northern hemisphere that the what do you say, the temperature of the light is warm. So that makes the skies looking very nice as well. And normally it would be the browns and things coming out a lot more, I don't know, more intense. Like a lot of saturation in colors, which is very nice. So, a feast for the eyes, everybody. There's a Galleria Mall over there. Probably some kiddie rides. It's kind of cold today. It's about, I don't know, maybe -2. Yesterday, as you notice, it wasn't freezing, because I was talking about the lesbian women's mud. I mean, did I say lesbian? I meant all genders. All genders in the women class mud wrestling, that muddy area. I should take some photos and use this on my. Anyway, let's go. Okay, one of the things I was talking about in the past, and there's a lot of these taboo subjects that obviously let's say the establishment doesn't want anybody to be talking about, no evidence to be put out in front of everybody, and I hit a lot of these things, and maybe that's a good thing that my channel is so small. And on the other hand, it's going to probably stay small because I don't think, because of the information that I put out, I don't think YouTube actually sends this out to that many people. I think it's more of luck. If it's a quality of luck if anybody gets this channel and you can actually watch it. So nothing more to be saying about that. So got a bad selfie stick, it keeps working. But I was talking about, for one thing last time, one of the last videos I made, not the last one, the one before last, was about a lot of these assassinations. And of course I talked about Kirillov, and I was already for well over a year talking about all of these things that he was putting out about the different types of I don't know, should I have to try to avoid the establishment of YouTube, and I have to say these things in a certain way so to stop from getting my channel more suppressed. But the things that he was putting out, it's talking about these instruments of war, I should put it that way, and one of them is not a very nice thing. And I'll tell you also that in my past I did some minor training, and it was at what was known then as Fort McClellan, Alabama. And at Fort McClellan, what we had there was that was the chemical school. So they had, I think maybe it was even some biological things going on there as well. As a matter of fact, I know there was biological things. I don't know about any nuclear training, but I had to go through some sort of chemical training, very little, and I was not in any sort of a chemical warfare MOS. I was in different things. And then even if you do have an MOS, you know, what's called military occupational specialty in the military, that it doesn't mean that you're actually always going to be working in that military occupational specialty, or maybe something slightly related, and you'll be put maybe or attached to a different unit doing something else. And some of that I really hated that the chemical stuff, even though it was very little. And I remember, like, I think I mentioned, you know, going through the gas chambers there, because you have to take off your mask and say your social security number and your name and all that sort of stuff. Taking it off in the chamber, it wasn't really quite that bad, but then when you start walking out and you get into the open air, that's when it starts to really burn and sting, and it was really terrible. And it takes minutes, quite a few minutes, because you're incapacitated for the most part, nose is running, and things like that. It's and I remember even lining up to go in there, and I didn't even know that we were going in the chamber at that time, but we were all lined up. I think there was, I don't know, over 200 of us, and people were vomiting all over, and I'm wondering, what the heck is going on? Why are these people all sick here? We weren't even in there yet. I don't know if there was something to do with their anticipation. Maybe these were people that were in the military, or their parents were, or something, so they knew what was going to be coming down, so they were getting sick, I guess, ahead of time. I'm not too sure. I wasn't feeling at all sick, you know, going in when lining up. I didn't even feel sick until I actually walked out of there, not even going in. So anyway, some of those substances, of course, are banned now. And let me also mention the fact that Fort McClellan, Alabama is shut down. In some areas in Fort McClellan, Alabama, no humans are allowed there without hazmat gear. So I think that was also the MP school at that time. And I went through back in, it was about 1984, and a lot of us got sick. So obviously they tried some sort of a virus on all of us. And so a lot of us were quite sick. We, of course, had to continue on with our training at that time. And they mentioned to me that we had URI, upper respiratory infection, and I didn't know what the heck that was. You know, it's not much, I guess you can even call a cold. A cold is also a URI. So anyway, I'm getting off track again, so it's going to be a long video. This is probably going to be over an hour, and I'm hoping it's going to be a lot of interesting information for y'all. And but you probably want to hear more about news rather than things like what I just said. So anyway, Kirillov was exposing a lot of things, and you know, they have the paperwork. And I mentioned also before about, you know, some of these things that were going on, and even Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov were mentioning, why is the U.S. Air Force taking thousands of blood samples of ethnic groups of Russians all over? And so the key there is that it's the Air Force, and that's a part of the Department of Defense. And if you know about that other sickness that we had, it was all around the world and people were locked down and all that, strangely enough, that was also military, but it was done through the United States Army. So they're doing a lot of this stuff, and this is all military. So you have to ask yourself, well, what is this? Why is it the defense department's doing that? Well, maybe, I don't know, am I allowed to say the word weapon? Instruments of war, whatever sort of a deal. And obviously, yes, it is. And I could also mention that there was also an incident, and a lot of people maybe have forgotten this. This was in the news. You probably never got this in the West, but they did an experiment on a lot of Ukrainian, I think it was Ukrainian soldiers, I believe all male soldiers, and I think the number was 48, but just for a good round number, we'll say 50 of them. Around 50. Maybe they've done this many other times. It was just this time was the only time that was actually exposed, and they used some of these things that they were developing on these soldiers, and all of them, I think all but one, died. And who knows? And when you normally do these things, you have a control, and then some people also get placebos and things like that. But in this case, they didn't do that. And you all know what kind of weapons that they're. I didn't mean to say that, YouTube. I meant these instruments that they're trying to create, and it's not necessarily just made of metal or anything like that. This is some thing like, maybe I could say gases, or I don't want to say the V word. It's terrible. You can't really talk in the open here. But anyway, it's these things that they're creating. It's I don't know. I got myself trying to think of a way to talk around this, and I even forgot the subject. But anyway, not important, I guess. Maybe it'll come to me what I was talking about. And so anyway, Kirillov, and 2017 is when they've. I'm starting to look at my notes now. I always go through my head, and I don't really look at my notes until I look back and find out things I forgot to say. Okay, I was going to mention Victoria Nuland. She was talking about 46 of these labs that the United States was operating in Ukraine, and I think recently somebody was saying some number like 30, but you heard it right from Victoria Nuland. If you guys ever saw any of the video footage, and she was, I guess, maybe talking to Congress at the time, and said that they were operating 46 of them. And of course, she didn't mention, that word starts with a W that I would be referring to, which is the instruments of war. She just called them some certain types of laboratories, and so it makes you wonder, why were they doing them in Ukraine? Why? But anyway, a lot of those have switched, and they still have some of them in Ukraine, and a lot of that has gone to Africa. Maybe a lot of you have already heard that. So they're doing this research, maybe even experiments in Africa as well. And of course, they had these programs already going in Africa, and you've heard of Ebola, and a lot of people say that's where that came from. And what you also don't know maybe is that Russia came up with the Ebola thing, and another word I don't want to say. I don't know, maybe I'm getting to be too scared. I just don't want to get this deleted. A lot of time I get these deleted when I'm talking on this subject. This is the subject they always take me down for. But they made a vaccine for this, apparently, and of course they were never going to tell you about that in the West. But a lot of this, from the sickness that came about at the end of 2019, they based the research and the methodology of how to fight this sickness they based the technology from the Ebola cure, I guess, or preventative cure. They based their preventative cure on the one that started in 2019, and you know that a lot of people were locked down for, including Moscow, by the way, and that was based on that technology. And then AstraZeneca, of course, tried to do that technology as well, but they didn't quite do it right, and they're not they don't have the expertise as the Russians do, so theirs was a big flop. And the United States, of course, tried it. You know what this is it's trying to get some sort of a genetic change in your genetic material, and it has to penetrate the nuclear envelope within a cell, and there's a certain ways to do that, and I guess the way that Russia did it is actually a lot more effective than the ways the United States have been doing it, like with Pfizer, which was done with what's that laboratory owned by Bill Gates in Wiesbaden. I forgot the name at the moment, but anyway, theirs is a more harsh way, and apparently that has something to do with the ineffectiveness, or at least maybe the danger or the harm that those preventative treatments have on people that get injected with that preventative treatment from those companies. All of them, of course, have investments from old Billy, and I don't know. I'm hoping I'm not going to get taken down from talking about these subjects here. So, anyway, Kirillov was talking about these things point blank, and I don't know. We are not allowed to talk about that here. Yes. So, but anyway, like I said, some of these things are still working in Ukraine, and on the second day of the special military operation back in 2022, I think maybe was it February 26th, I don't even know exact date anymore, but all of this stuff, Zelensky had ordered all of this information, so-called evidence or whatever, all to be destroyed. And weeks before that, they took a lot of this information and they'd already transferred it to various places, including the United States. So they were doing this research, and you all know what that's all about, obviously. I've strongly hinted, and Kirillov was talking about this. And this is on a genetic level, instruments of war on a genetic level, geared to do tremendous harm or wipe out certain peoples. And part of what I was talking about in my video before last was my admiration for Fico, Robert Fico of Slovakia, that leader. And he's come out and talked a lot about this sickness from it started at the end of 2019. And he said, and I don't think I actually got this far, maybe I just slipped my mind while I was talking about it, too distracted, is what Robert Fico, another thing that he said, and since he's got such a small country that a lot of people, you don't get the news about any things that he said, but he's a very brilliant guy, and if he was running Russia or anything else, you know, and putting out the truth point blank, bluntly to people's faces, it would be quite quite eye-opening. So he said, and it goes along with what I was also talking in that video. I was talking about this war against Slavic peoples, and of course this has been going on since the 1100s. Like when I said that I didn't mention the name, it was from the Ascanian dynasty. That was the dynasty that, it was a pre-dynasty in Germany, and that was the dynasty, of course, that was ruling an eastern part, which was the Nordmark, and that dynasty died out. The last person that was supposed to take the the throne or something, it was Valdemar. Same name as what the name they use in that Harry Potter thing. But the first one was Albert the Bear, Albrecht der Bär, from the Ascanian dynasty, and they had a lot of people, and then it was very strange that they all sort of died out at that time. But they were commissioned. Albert the Bear was one of the ones that was he participated in the Crusades, and he was gifted the control over the Nordmark by the earlier European Union, the very earliest, which was the Holy Roman Empire at that time. And so, anyway, his job, as with the other marches, in English they call it the March, the Northern March, it was to keep the Slavic peoples out of Europe. So, and then you're looking at these instruments of war that are now coming out that the United States is heavily investing in, with all of these research places that were in Ukraine and were shut down, and a lot of the things were taken and moved to other places afterwards. This Air Force project, and this is it's kind of like a theme. It's a theme. I was talking about themes in my last video. It's like a theme that you can follow back from the 1100s. And Robert Fico, what he said is, and the evidence points in this direction. I'm sorry to say this, even though it might be coincidental, but it seems like, and you can't deny it, that it seems to be that there's some sort of a movement to try to eliminate Slavic peoples. And just like Lindsey Graham said, he is so incredibly happy that these Ukrainians, that they will fight to the last Ukrainian, killing Russians. So, in other words, they will wipe themselves out as they are wiping out other Slavic peoples. And Robert Fico is no dummy. That's why I have an admiration for this guy. He has seemed to notice this, and it's very few of us that will be talking about this sort of a subject. I'm one of them. I studied history, and it was, like I told you in other videos, it's like something I really took note of. I said, what the heck? It's like, why did they have against people just because of the fact that they were Slavs at that time? And you can even talk about when the Huns, they invaded Europe at that time, and of course they pretty much wiped out Kiev back in those days. But that, Kiev was for the most part Russian back in those days anyway. But anyhow, people are still fighting against each other, and one ethnic groups against the other. And I guess the only other thing I would really say about this is, in my opinion, because I don't, it's not like racism. What is, the human race, or what is it? I don't know, black, Chinese, I don't know. Huns were different ethnic group, there's no doubt about that. Slavic peoples, you can see one walk in the streets. Some they're dark-haired, some are blonde-haired. There's really not much of any difference, between all the rest of the people in the world. Maybe we're all intermixed anyhow, but I don't know. So you can't call that racism. I don't know. I'm just at a loss. Sorry about that. So anyway, let's get on to other things here. So where am I at here? Yes, I already. Most of the stuff I talked about. Wow, that's pretty cool. Great. I'm making some progress, people. Making some progress. Just gotta know which side of the card is the one I. Yes. Okay. Also, another thing, people are not talking about this, and it's been mentioned. It's been mentioned already for quite some time, quite a few months. But you all heard about this Orishnik. Well, I would say Orishnikov. That is a very similar word, but they call it the Orishnik, the weapon that Russia used, and it's not a nuclear weapon, but it's made on a different. It's a kinetic energy weapon, and it's a different type of weapon, and there's no fallout, no nuclear fallout, and it's actually, it can be devastating, very devastating. Not on the scale of nuclear weapons, of course, but more devastating in many different ways than some of the conventional bombs that are being used. And I don't know if there's any sort of big pollution or something that is the result of that, but apparently it's a lot of destruction, and they bombed some sort of a what is it? I don't know if it was a manufacturing place or something that Kiev was running, or if it was a ammunition depot. I'm not quite exactly sure, but apparently what it does, this weapon, is it virtually turns everything into dust. And this weapon, I guess, was used to penetrated the surface, and it went more underground, so you didn't see any big devastating areas on the surface. I don't know if that's how they all work or not. I'm not an expert, and I don't know. And when you find information online, you don't know if that person, whoever's given you that information, is any kind of an expert anyway, because I'm kind of sick of things, you know, it sounds like people know what they're talking about, and then you find out they actually never did. So I'm not going to really go into that. I just know what you know, Vladimir Putin put out, and some of the people that are involved in the Department of Defense of Russia. So that would be more what do you call it? More information that I guess you can count on. So, I mean, real information, because they're the ones that are actually using it, and not some joker from the outside. So, but what I was going to say is Israel seems to have some sort of devastating weapons as well. And like I was saying, a lot of you have never heard about this. For some reason, nobody is really ever talking about this, but this has been going on even since springtime. And there's these weapons that they're using, and a lot of people are wondering, well, what kind of weapon was this? You know, they're devastating. Of course, they're using this on the Palestinians, on civilian, innocent people, which is, of course, what those people with that ideology like to do. You know, that same ideology that spawned Adolf and Zelensky. So, just because they're Israelis, and at least proclaim to be Jewish people, doesn't mean that they cannot belong to that ideology, which of course they do. And a lot of people are coming out and actually admitting all of this stuff now. Maybe one of them, Jeffrey Sachs. I have admiration for him. And Candace Owens, she is really woken up, and she is now, I'm not going to say she's woke. She's awakened. She's awakened, and she is now disgusted about, you know, these people and how they're wiping out children, and it is real genocide. It's an undeniable fact that it's a genocide. But you know, it used to be like genocide, they said, is to wipe out everybody on the planet Earth belonging to some sort of a genetic group or whatever. And of course that's impossible. So, you know, if that would be the case, there would be no need for the word genocide, because it is impossible. It's impossible to do that. So unless it was like Conan the Barbarian, or no, who was it that somebody said, oh, they're the last of their people? But nah, BS. That's a fantasy book anyway, Conan the Barbarian. So, but in the real sense, they're just trying to wipe out as many people from that genetic group as they possibly can. And a lot of that is mostly for the purpose of ethnic cleansing. Eretz Israel, they want to take over all of that. And Candace Owens, this is a big one right now. This was a main thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. She did an interview with somebody, one of the survivors of the USS Liberty. And let's see, I have some information on that. I have a special card on that one. And I already knew about a lot of this information, but there's some things that I learned that were very new about that. And I knew that, for example, Israel knew that they were Americans, and they were trying to sink and kill all the soldiers of that ship. This was in 1967. This is banned information, by the way. This is all suppressed, and it's not allowed to be talked about, and they tried to shut it up. And the President of the United States knew all about it, and he told people to shut up, and he said he didn't care about the deaths of a few soldiers. I don't know how many were on that ship, a couple hundred, and it was in 1967. And it was, you know, during I don't know if it was a 6-day war between Egypt and Israel at that time or whatever. But this ship was out there. It was an American ship, the USS Liberty, and it was there just to monitor, to see what kind of was going on out in the ocean. The Israelis would come by, you know, and they'd smile and wave. They'd tip their wings because, you know, and they were flying the American flag on that. And some of this information is what came out in that interview with Candace Owens, and some of it I knew from some other sources, so it might not be exactly, I might be adding a little bit of information to it, and I might be detracting a little bit from this interview, but you should actually see that. After Candace Owens got Anti-Semite of the Year award, I think she's kind of on a maybe on a little bit of a little rampage, and she's not an anti-Semite, but she's against Israel's massacring of tens of thousands of children and innocent people, purposefully doing so, you know. So that, I guess, they're trying to say if you are against Israel killing innocent people, then you're an anti-Semite, then you don't like any Jews at all. So I guess that makes Norman Finkelstein and Max Blumenthal also anti-Semites. No, they're not they're self-hating Jews. So in other words, they hate themselves, even though they don't hate themselves, but by definition, by that definition, a whole new definition that doesn't even work, they're self-hating. You know, figure that one out. Okay. So, and there was some sort of article written, I think it was in the Jerusalem Post they were talking about, and it's called "A Friend Indeed." As you know, that expression, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And it's very strange. What came out from this interview that Candace Owens was conducting was the fact that that was around the beginnings of the time when, in truth, Israel took control of the United States foreign policy, at least all throughout the Middle East. Israel has far more control in the United States than just the foreign policy in the Middle East. It has a lot of control in a lot of ways, and it's incredible, and a lot of this, you know, explains on how that came about. And it turns out that, as you know, it's really some fishy things about what was going on with the assassination of JFK. And there's a lot of evidence. And of course, America doesn't like to talk about this stuff. But it turns out, at least I remember from some other different evidence, that Lyndon B. Johnson was told of the prospect of him becoming president of the United States, and of course that they wanted a war. They wanted a war in Vietnam, and he said, "Just make me president." You know, he swore a lot. I don't know, should I be cussing on this video or not? But he said, "You just make me president and I'll give you your blank damn war." And so he was involved in whatever, he knew what was going on to what happened to JFK, and there's no doubt about that. There's a lot of really fishy stuff about that. One thing I didn't know, but what came out with this interview with Candace Owens, is that Lyndon B. Johnson was Jewish and deeply sympathetic to Israel. And another thing that came out, and well, it doesn't surprise me, Jack Ruby, who assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald. And as you know, a few videos ago, I was going by the house, or at least the beautiful building, the beautiful building, or the apartment building where Lee Harvey Oswald lived while he was here in Minsk. And but Jack Ruby, who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, his real name was Jack Rubenstein. He was very sympathetic to Israel as well. I did not know this. And of course, this is all suppressed in history and everything else anyway. This guy was originally from Chicago, and then he moved to Dallas. And that, I don't know if that's a little bit suspicious to start off with right there. He was like a nightclub owner, and he was supposed to have liked John F. Kennedy quite a bit, you know. But anyway, Lee Harvey Oswald had said already at different times that he was a patsy and that he was set up, and he never got his day in court, and we never really found out what was really going on about that. And a lot of things like about JFK, you know, he was trying to take the control of the printing of the US dollar away from the Federal Reserve, which Woodrow Wilson, who had done that in 1913, I believe, he said he made the biggest mistake, you know, of any president ever by doing that, by giving the control of the United States money supply to private banks. And a lot of those people obviously were tied very heavily to Israel. Of course, they were all Jewish, and of course that banking system is known as the Jewish banking system, you know, with the usury and the charging of interest, things like that. So but it's, I don't know, I don't want to get into forthcoming about things like that. But anyhow, and another thing I did not know that came from this interview. I knew part about it. I knew that what was happening. The United States nearly dropped a nuclear bomb on Cairo because they at least, even though they knew that Israel was attacking, this was a very strange thing, because the evidence is all pointing this way. The United States government knew that Israel was attacking and trying to sink the USS Liberty. And apparently this was obviously a collusion between the United States government and the Israeli government. And what was happening is the United States, just like in World War II, they wanted to get into the war. The United States wants to get into wars. And a lot of money is made during the times of war. When you go to war, a lot of people get very rich, and you have something called the military-industrial complex, and of course it was in full power back in those days. That was 1967, and anyway, what was happening was it was supposed to make it look like Egypt was bombing the USS Liberty, and the whole idea was to sink the USS Liberty, and this is well known now, and everybody seems to acknowledge that fact. They were trying to sink Israel, with the knowledge of the United States government, was trying to sink the USS Liberty. Boy, I wonder if I'm going to get taken down for talking about this sort of thing. So, and the reason why it didn't happen, everything didn't happen exactly the way they wanted to, is because this is a very strange fact right now. They jury-rigged an antenna, the people on the boat of the USS Liberty, and they sent out a signal, and the signal was even heard as far away as I think it was even in Asia, places in Asia, they heard this signal. But guess who else heard the signal? A Russian submarine heard that signal. And the Russian submarine was actually sympathetic to trying to come to the rescue of the United States ship. And the United States military found out that the Russians found out, because they were getting these transcripts as well. And of course, a lot of these soldiers did not want to comply with going on. They were sending airplanes to fight against whoever was attacking this ship, and they were all called back. They were all called back, and I believe John McCain's father was the admiral of one of those fleets. And John McCain, as you know, he was in this, he had some very bad things about him happening too. He killed American soldiers even sitting on the deck. There was a way to put some fuel in your fuel tanks or something like that. You press a button and fire comes out of the back, and he was doing that. Some thing because it looks really cool, and he accidentally killed some American soldiers with that way. And of course, that was all hushed up. John McCain's father was admiral of one of the big fleets, and then he was just transferred but that's John McCain. I don't want to get too far into other tangents of history, but anyway, the United States had a nuclear bomb planted on an airplane, and it was on its way to dropping that nuclear bomb on Cairo. The United States, it was on the way. But anyway, when they found out that the Russians had also received this signal that was transmitted from the USS Liberty, they had to call that back, because the Russians knew, It starts to make you wonder why they hate the Russians, and there's all kinds of things, like even Lenin, the Bolshevik, which, he had uncovered the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Otherwise, that was actually a secret as well. Sykes-Picot Agreement, that was when France and Britain were splitting up all of the colonies, like Iraq and all these places, Palestine, believe it or not. I've talked about that in other videos as well. But anyway, this time, so the Russians had taken up this signal. And guess what? In some of these transmissions, this is part I didn't know about, and they have this on record. They have it on record that if the USS Liberty were to sink, that Russia was going to drop a nuclear bomb on Israel. So a shocker there. This is some really shocking information. So maybe I should put that on my page or something like that when I'm introducing this video. Anyway, that's the big topic that I was talking about, that I wanted to get out there. And another thing I was going to talk about. We're talking also now about this truck bomber. Well, actually, there's two truck bombers. The Tesla vehicle that was in front of Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and then you have this truck bomber from New Orleans. And they're trying to tie these things together. And I'll tell you what, I tied it all together. I've tied it together already. Those people, maybe they didn't know each other, and that was not a tie. But I'll tell you what, matter of fact, I'll get back to you guys in a second here. Gotta leave something here. Okay, let me continue about these truck bomber things. Anyway, that wasn't sitting right with me in the first place. Donald Trump was saying, oh, this is a result of all this immigration policies, and this is letting all these foreign migrants coming in here unabated. And turns out that both of these bombers, neither one of them were Muslims. They were born in the United States, probably never even left the United States, except for maybe one of them he had left the United States, but the other guy, supposedly he converted to Islam, and he has an Islamic name, so that's probably why Donald Trump thought this guy was some kind of a Muslim immigrant or whatever. But apparently he had converted to Islam, and he loved ISIS or whatever. Strangely enough, ISIS is a United States organization. Created, and that's a well-known fact. Operation Sycamore. Jeffrey Sachs talked about that, and that was Obama and the CIA, and that's part of this thing. They created ISIS to try to depose Assad, and get to the point of where they are right now. And Jeffrey Sachs was also talking about all these nations that the United States had planned to overthrow. I think there was 7 of them, and now they've gotten, I think, all of them except for Iran. They're going to finish off with Iran, and then I'll tell you what, after Iran, maybe they're going to go after Russia. They think they are, but they're not going to ever be able to take control of Russia. That's never going to happen. So, but I don't even think they're going to be able to take Iran. And apparently, just something that came out, I guess, yesterday, that Joe Biden was considering an attack on Iran. That's what makes you really wonder. What has Iran ever done to the United States? Well, what have any of these countries ever done? Well, I'll tell you what. They are guilty of the fact that they have resources that the United States covets. They want, because it's money. It's money, baby. It's, what is it called? Fascism. These corporations need they need commodities to make products and to sell them and force everybody to buy them. All over the world or something. Fascism. Marriage of corporate money to government power. So, that's just one side of it. Getting kind of cold out here. It's kind of nice light over there too. Let me walk over this way. But, where was I? Trying to get off on these themes. Oh, yeah, these like 7 countries, and then going after Iran is one of them, and I don't know. But I don't know. I get off on these tangents, get too distracted. I probably need a teleprompter, like Obama. So, I was talking about Operation Sycamore. Yeah, that was that operation, and of course, as you know, Hillary Clinton involved in that. They've taken the weapons after they overthrew Libya, and then taken those weapons and shipping them through the embassy in what town was that in Libya, to Syria. So, and yeah, I don't know. So the truck bombers and these guys. Okay, these were Americans, and I'll tell you what. And it makes you. One thing that sets off some bells in your head is that the guy in Las Vegas, he was using a Tesla. Elon Musk. Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They've kind of got I don't know if you'd call it a partnership, so to speak. And it's actually, if you think about it as well, it's also like fascism, because Elon Musk, he represents the private sector of technology, and Donald Trump is going to be in the government, but government and corporations marriage together. But anyhow, I don't want to get into that necessarily. But the guy that did that bombing, he was a special forces guy, active duty. And the very shocking thing, I heard it today, And apparently it's true that this guy, he was shot in the head. So how can you, I don't know, I'm trying to think, how did this guy do this? Did he set off the bomb and then shoot himself in the head while he was burning? Or did he set off the bomb first and then shot himself in the head? Or did he shoot himself in the head through the brain, I guess, and then set off the bomb? I don't know. Something doesn't fit with that. Either scenario doesn't seem to work very well, you know, because you think about the force of the bomb as well. I mean, are you going to be able to pull a trigger? They said they found a gun somewhere by his feet, but I'll tell you, yeah, by his feet. Well, you know, I'll tell you what. I'll spell it out for you right now. They killed this guy. They put him in there, and then they set this bomb off. And they said he had a detonation device. But did he have the detonation device, or was there a detonation device in the car? So it makes you really wonder how that can happen. You know, there are cars that drive themselves. I think a lot of you guys know that. I didn't know this until just some years ago. You can fall asleep in your car and your car will drive by itself. It'll even park it by itself. So I don't know what did this, you know, Elon Musk, he's pretty good with technology. So it makes me wonder if this Tesla was any kind of a vehicle like that. How did that car get there? Do they have any film footage of this guy driving up? You know, and even if they did have the film footage of the car driving up there, I mean, we are all still back in the 1990s or 80s or something when they didn't have these kind of cars. So how did this car get there? I don't know. And even if they show this car driving up, it doesn't mean that that guy drove it up. You know, it's just like deep fakes. Nothing is believable nowadays. You can't believe your own eyes, no matter what. So I don't know. It's very, talking about cars, let's see. China Carlink, a Volkswagen, Nissan, Japanese car. What else do we have here? I don't know what kind of car this is. Is that a Tesla? Or maybe something, I don't know. It's probably electric. I don't know if maybe these are all electric. This is definitely a Chinese car. I think this was made in Belarus, by the way. Anyhow, more Chinese car. Look at this Chinese car. They make cell phones. I guess this car factory that you're looking at right now, this car factory, they put out thousands of cars and nobody's even working in the factory. It's all done mechanically. It's all done by AI and all that. Things you don't know. And they put out thousands of cars in a day. That's why they're, you know, China. Look at, these are all Chinese cars. Anyway, we're talking about cars. How appropriate, how coincidental. So, like I said, it's going to be a long video. This part I've done right now, I had to relieve myself, so I have to tack this one onto the other video that I was making. That's over 30 minutes or so, maybe 40 minutes. And let's see. Okay, Israel, like I said about these bombs, they had one of these bombs that I was mentioning earlier, they had set off last night. And apparently, you know, it was done at nighttime, obviously, but apparently you could still see that it was a huge mushroom cloud. And it wasn't, of course, a nuclear bomb, I'm sure, but it was new information when I was reading it. So anything is possible, but I doubt very much it would be nuclear. They wouldn't even be that stupid to do that, you know. And of course, Israel has never admitted that they have nuclear bombs, and everybody on Earth, including everyone in the United States and the government, they know that for an absolute fact, you know. They had that different agency, I don't even know the name, but Israel has the Mossad, which is like the CIA, and then they have the Shin Bet, which is, you could say it's analogous to the FBI. That's their internal security service. And they had another one before, and that was concerned with stealing nuclear secrets, primarily from the United States. And I'm assuming that's where Jonathan Pollard worked for, and they're trying to get Jonathan Pollard freed. and he's a big hero in Israel because he did that to the United States. And also part of this, what was going on with this USS Liberty, this one of the little bit of the information that was put out is like I said that they were waving to each other, the Americans and the things at the very beginning, and then they stopped, and then it was there was no symbols on the airplanes anymore. I believe that was, I don't know if it was the entire time, but they were Israelis. And then there was no more waving, and then they attacked the USS Liberty, and they were shooting it. They shot up all the hoses so that they couldn't put the fires out, and they had, they were sending bombs and things like that after that as well. And then there was a torpedo, so it put a big hole in the side of the ship, and they were trying to sink it. In the U.S. government, I'm talking about the top people, Lyndon B. Johnson, he knew that too, and he wanted it sunk as well. And they didn't sink it. I guess maybe they care more about starting the wars than they do about their own American soldiers. So, but anyway, it didn't happen the way they wanted it to. And then besides that, it's the Russians overheard that signal, and I think they were offering help. But America, I think they thought better not to do that. So. And I don't know if an American ship came to, they were able to offload a lot of their more severely wounded people onto an American ship, but they didn't get any help, and they had to limp all the way to Malta, and they didn't get help from any Americans at all because it was taboo, based on from McNamara, who was the Secretary of Defense at the time. So these are kind of nasty guys too. I almost met Caspar Weinberger, who was Secretary of Defense back in the George Bush the first days, but that didn't happen. I did meet a couple presidents of different countries, and President Ronald Reagan and all that sort of a deal, but that's in the past. I was just a corporal anyway. Trying to sound like I'm so important, but. In those days, I wasn't interested in politics at all anyway, and I bought into all the BS too that we're all flooded with. So anyway, what else are we talking about here? But what the guy said when they were on this ship, I think the Israelis, then they acted as if, do you need help or something? And the American soldier flipped him off, and then the Israeli flipped him off back and was laughing at him, and it's more like. Just like I said, the article that was put into the Jerusalem Post that said a friend in need and all that, but the real truth about this is the United States, they're being played as useful idiots. They're being played as useful idiots by Israel. And they have Israel by the short hairs, by the family jewels. And apparently, and there's other ways, and you guys all knew about Jeffrey Epstein and how, and he was Mossad apparently, and they had people invited to this island, and they filmed a lot of things that were going on, like whatever Bill Clinton was doing, and apparently a lot of these people, they don't really even mind. They don't even mind that they're being compromised and that they have the goods on them. And even Sybil Edmonds, she was supposed to be the most gagged person in U.S. history, she was putting out a lot of things, and she's told she's not allowed to talk about this stuff or she'll be going to prison for the rest of her life, and she started a whistleblowing sort of a deal. She was an interpreter. Look up Sybil Edmonds. You find out she was Armenian, and she knew a lot of languages, and she was like an interpreter, I guess, for the FBI. But she uncovered a huge spy ring in the United States government that were spying, believe it or not, for Israel. You have Americans, and it's very strange, starting with, or maybe just becoming more prominent, that you have these people like Lyndon B. Johnson, President of the United States, more loyal to Israel than they are to America. And it's like, it makes me think of Annalena Baerbock, when she said she doesn't care about the German people. She cares more about the Ukrainian people than she cares about the German people. makes you wonder what kind of a world we're living in, people, you know? And then they talk about treason and things like that, but yet you have it sitting here staring you right in the face. So, I'm probably going to get deleted. I don't know if this video is going to be seeing the light of day, but if it does, send this out to other people, please, or send it to other sites. I don't know. I need some viewership, because I think maybe with more viewers, maybe I have a better chance of surviving. I don't know. So, there was more things I wanted to put out. I can't even remember them all right now. There's just a lot of news, and unfortunately, I have this problem. It's like an addiction or something like that. I'm you know, coming up with this sort of news, and I hate to see this injustice in the world. And there are other people like us. You know, it's like Candace Owens. I really admire Candace Owens, and did I mention the fact that a lot of that something that really kind of set me off was Larry Johnson. He was a former CIA agent, and he's the one that actually, you know, kind of said, man, I really also have to talk about that. That just didn't sit right with me with these bomber guys and all that. And you have to hand it to these people like there's Ray McGovern and Larry Johnson and Philip Giraldi. These are former CIA people, and they're speaking out. And then you have, unfortunately, there's a fake guy. I think I don't know what he is. He's maybe not even 40 years old. I haven't seen him lately, but he was on some of these blogs, and he's going around like he has to tell everybody, I was a CIA agent. I was a CIA. He was no CIA agent. I was never in the CIA. I worked with a lot of these people, not necessarily CIA. I didn't work with those. I knew some of them, but that there's intelligence agencies in the United States military, and a lot of time they were calling them even CID. It's just a big branch, and CID, you know, covers a lot of different investigative, you know, things in the U.S. military, and you can tell a lot of these people as it is, and when you've met them, like maybe even in other countries, and see them operating, you know, it's very obvious. And then they got this guy. I won't even say his name. I don't want to do that. You guys will find him out. He's got a brown skin type of guy, kind of weird looking. He was too young to have any kind of a, you know, big experience in the CIA. He's just a BSer, and some people had him on their vlogs or whatever like that. And I remember hearing some things that he said, and it was all wrong anyway. So if you ever see this guy, kind of a dark-skinned guy, looks like he had kind of a curly, bushy hair, you know, weirdo-looking guy, sickening. But you know, I like Larry Johnson, people like that, you know, very wise people with good information, things like that. So anyway, I can end this video now and get out of here. And I hope you guys like this video. There's a lot of Minsk is a beautiful place, and Belarus is a great place. Even people that don't like the government here, I even like those people, you know. So there's a big operation. Maybe I should talk about that at some point in time. There's like a big PSYOP operation here, and it's being conducted from across the border, you know, Poland and Lithuania and Latvia, and you know, Poland has even bragged about how successful they are about brainwashing a lot of these Belarusians to dislike their government. And it doesn't mean necessarily that they support the opposition, but it's they get them to just dislike the government. But I guess by connection, if they had somebody that was of any kind of a value that would be running for the opposition, they would think people would vote for that. But like I also mentioned in another video, the United States has put out that Americans should leave. They ordered us to leave Belarus, and to leave Belarus, and I didn't do that. So looks like some men in green, the green men. I'm in green too, so I'm all in green. You guys can see I even have green pants on, so maybe they think I'm one of them. So, but in any case, whatever I was talking about, there might be something coming down here. There's an election coming up very soon, and you never know. So keep in touch. Maybe watch my channel, and I hope I don't have any bad news. You know, they recommend never to go outside when they have any of these demonstrations, and never film this stuff. You know, I don't want to get into trouble. I'll follow what the government tells me to do here. You know, I like the government in Belarus. It's you get a lot of misinformation in the West about Belarus. As you see, it's a nice place. They care about people. There's one thing I want you guys to remember. I'll tell it to you right now. And this is very important. This is some very important things, something to say right now. And I think it was Sergei Lavrov that put this out. He said that the United States fights for resources. Russia, and I would say Belarus as well, they fight for people. And it doesn't take you very much thinking to figure out what that was all about. So, and that's all I wanted to say today. And thanks for joining me, and I hope you liked the video. I hope I can come out with some other good videos in the future. I hope this was a good one. And thanks again, and Happy New Year. Until the next one. Bye-bye.